Welcome to Leader, the podcast where we delve into the heart of leadership and education, exploring the journeys and practices of those shaping the future for Black and Brown students in charter schools. I'm your host, Darryl Cobb, president of the Charter School Growth Fund. In each episode, we sit down with exceptional leaders from the charter school community, unpacking not only their successes, but also the profound personal stories that compel them to lead. Our conversations aim to surface actionable insights and highlight what it takes to build a great school. Whether you're an educator, a leader, or someone passionate about the transformative power of education, there's something here for you. Let's discover together what makes these leaders tick, the challenges they've overcome, and the wisdom they've gained. Welcome to our next episode of Leader to Leader, the podcast where we have the opportunity to interview some of the nation's strongest charter leaders who are doing amazing things for kids and communities all across the country. My name's Darryl Cobb, and today I am thrilled to be joined by Miss Isabel Garcia, who is the CEO of RCMA in Florida. Isabel, it's so great to have you here. Thank you for coming.
No, thank you for having me in. It's a pleasure to be here and spend some quality time with you.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you for coming all the way from sunny Florida up here to Chicago. It's a little cooler up here.
It's nice weather here.
Little cooler up here. So thrilled to have you.
Thank you.
And we're going to do a walk through your journey and understand more about your leadership and what makes you tick. But I want to start, many people in our audience may not know anything about RCMA. I feel like everybody should know far more about RCMA. So why don't you let the audience know about all that you all do at RCMA?
Okay.
And then we'll kind of jump back to the story of you, and then
Okay.
we'll go from there.
Well, we have been told often that we are the best kept secret. And
I would agree with that. And the goal is to get it out of secret.
Yes.
And just, for more people to hear about it.
So RCMA is actually celebrating 60 years of existence in October.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
huge.
It is. We started back in 1965 with a focus in helping farm workers keep their children safe as they were working out in the field. We opened our first child care center with our founder, Mr. Wendell Rollison. And from there, we have grown from one child development center to having 55 child development centers throughout the state of Florida. 55. We are in 20 counties throughout the state of Florida. But what is unique is that we are in rural communities, because we have been focused on serving the hard-to-reach communities, but mostly farm worker families.
Okay.
And from there, we have learned not only do children need a strong early foundation because of the families that we were serving, and as children would grow into kindergarten, transition into kindergarten, we know firsthand experience that families and children still need more support, more resources, especially when they're new immigrants into the community. And so our previous executive director, Barbara Mainster, started the charter schools at RCMA. They said, we already got this down pat on our early childhood program. We know how to get children ready the first years of their life. We need to help them as adolescents and as they're entering the academic world. And so she started the first charter school in 2000. And so now we also have 3 charter schools added to our 55 child development centers. And throughout the state, we serve about 5,000 children annually. And we employ about 1,400 employees throughout the state of Florida.
Wow. So every year you all are touching 5,000 plus young people between the Head Start centers and the schools.
6 weeks to, what is it, in 8th grade? How old are they? 13? 14? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
13
6 weeks old all the way up to 13, 14-year-old. Yes.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, so many things I want to talk about and connections I want to make, but I want to start and help our audience get an understanding of you.
Okay.
And your story. So tell us a little bit about your story, where you grew up and how those early years of your life and your adolescence shaped somebody who is now a powerful leader of such an incredible organization.
So I am a product of Farmworker families.
Okay.
And I get emotional because this is not a job for me. This is really giving back because I experience what resources and opportunities can do for you. And so I am a child of farm worker families. I grew up with my parents traveling to North Carolina to pick tobacco, to Maryland to pick peaches.
Yes.
And so I remember going to school. I just have this childhood memory of riding a tricycle in a white schoolhouse. And I remember a teacher taking me out or asking my parents if I could come over and have dinner. And she asked, what do I want? And I said, well, I want spaghetti because I've never had spaghetti. And she also offered me homemade blueberry muffins. So having those experiences of living that same lifestyle and being able to grow up and understanding what it's like to move from state to state really also now resonates with me why I am where I am today.
Yeah.
Like it's unintentional, but it happens, by
It was preparation for
yes.
what you were doing today. Yeah.
And so my parents and I, would migrate until my family settled out, like many families, saying we needed to start school. We needed to not be traveling as much. And so I would be able to start school on time. And so through those early childhood years, I remember working in the field. I remember seeing my mom, how she treated the people. I remember my dad, he was always in charge of the crew. So I sit back and I reflect and I'm like, wow, they were great leaders. Like they were great examples for me. And it's not until you are where you're at today, facing some of the challenges, facing some of the why, how did I end up here, that you realize that a lot of it has to do with your background. And that's what I do at RCMA. I serve that same population. I am offering those families and those students the same opportunity that I was given through RCMA to earn my degree. I was the first college graduate in my migrant family. The same story as many of our kiddos, as many of our staff. I was the first one to have a role that I say, this is a real job. And so I feel like I owe that to RCMA, but the mentors that have been in my life, like the teacher who took me to eat spaghetti at her house, what it really means to be able to meet the child where they're at and make them feel important.
Talk to me a little bit about your experience going from high school to college as a first generation college going student, and then how you decided upon the career that you wanted. How did that all unfold for you?
Good question. There's a lot of misconceptions and myths out there about all those poor people, all those farm workers, kind of like in the deficit model, but
very much so.
There's a lot of strengths. And I say that because now I remember and I reflect growing up, even though my mom was illiterate, she could not go more than second grade because she had to work in the fields. My dad was an immigrant from Mexico at the age of 15, came over and has always been a hard worker. But I remember growing up, we always had encyclopedias in our home.
I remember encyclopedias.
And I'm like, now it connects. Like my dad always says, you have to get an education. You have to get an education. It was one thing, them saying it, but I really didn't know what it looked like. I just know I went to school. So I was fortunate that one day after school, I went to pick up cousins of mine at the after school program in RCMA. And when I went to sign them out, the director says, what are you doing? Where, do you work? And I'm like, no, I'm in high school. I'm a senior in high school. I said, I don't work. And then she goes, well, why don't you come and work here? And I looked at her and I'm like, doing what? She goes, an after school tutor. She goes, would you like to work for us? And I'm like, sure, why not? She said, okay, come back tomorrow and you can start work. The next day I started as an after-school teacher in one of our programs. And that was the beginning. Like, I did not know that this would be the path or where I would end up. Yeah. I think that was the beginning of my experience as a teacher. Again, working with students who are from farmworker families. And I'm like, wow, I can do this. I can teach. And that's where it started. When then I moved into being a preschool teacher, we got a program where we were given the opportunity at RCMA to go to college. And I'm like, okay, I was scared. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go. I think I can do this. So that's how I got into college, through a pilot program that was started at RCMA for teachers to earn their degree. And from there on, I'm like, I am smart. I can do this. It's not hard. And that's how I earned my bachelor's degree in early childhood, because it was through those programs at RCMA that offered to teachers to go get their child development associate, their certification, and then further on to a college. And the little did I know, again, that this was a calling for me. And from there, I've grown to different positions at RCMA. I think one of the things we don't recognize and realize that, like many say, other people see a potential in you and you don't know it until they start. And that's what happened to me at RCMA. Many of the positions that I ended up with because one of my mentors or people who believed in me said, Isabel, you can do this. Isabel, you can do that. And of course, with a lot of, doubt, I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think I want to do that. Yes. Just try it. You'll be fine. You just try it. If you don't like it, you can go back. Well, there's never ever going back. Like you say, you just keep challenging yourself and keep knowing that you can try to do more. And so I grew up from being a preschool teacher to being a site director to being an area director. And then I grew up to be a program quality, overseeing like the whole early childhood programming in RCMA and overseeing all the different components that made up the early childhood. So it was literally a passion of mine saying, wow, I'm really doing something that I really enjoy. A few years back, when I became the executive director for RCMA, 5 years now, I inherited the charter schools. So when I was over the early childhood programs, my executive director back then, she the one that started the charter schools and managed them. So I've learned about the charter schools in my last 5 years and have also seen what the fruits of our early childhood foundation can become when you continue to add resources and really add support to those children and families that need this educational opportunity. So I believe that now I see, and I've been working on what is the reality and how can we strengthen our 0 to 8th grade model. Because before that's not what RCMA was, and now that's what it is. So so that is where I think we are now, is trying to see, we're bridging that gap, and we are trying to say, children, if they have this foundation of early childhood, then they transition into the charter school. Then we help them with graduate support into high school. We're seeing the fruits of that labor when our kiddos are graduating high school and being accepted into prep schools, private schools, and collegiate high schools.
That's amazing.
I think I answered your question.
You did. Of course you did. There are so many strands I want to pull on in there, and I want to ultimately come to the 0 to 8 and how you're thinking about that as a continuum and what's the special things happening inside of your school. Before I do that, you touched on a couple of things about your leadership that I want to unpack.
Okay.
And the first one is, you said a number of times a bunch of people have noticed something special about you and provided you with opportunities. When did you develop, because I know a lot of people out there have a kind of imposter syndrome, or they don't believe that they can do things that others see in them. sounds like maybe you had a little bit of that early on, but now, like, you've been ED for 5 years, you know that you can lead this organization, lead the organization to doing great things. Talk to me a little bit about that process of growth in you from, I don't know if I can do this, to now I am a confident leader and I know I can lead this organization to the new heights where it's going.
One of my, I think one of my 5 top strengths is learner. And I think that's what drives me, the learner, because I know that I don't know it all. I know where my weaknesses are. I know where my insecurities are. And so when I am thinking about professional development or where I need to focus, I seek out in those areas to try to help. One of them being finance. I couldn't do math. I don't like math. And so finance is not my strong suit. And so I want to learn more about financial statements. I want to learn more about, now I consider myself, I think I could work as an accountant as much as I've learned. But I work on those areas that I know I've identified as areas for myself to get better at. You know, public speaking or even writing. I have to be intentional about those things. And I think that I've been able to recognize that through a lot of the leadership opportunities that I've been given. I also think that by teaching and mentoring others helps me grow. Because you don't realize it until they're asking you for your advice or they're asking you for your opinion. That, or later on, so a couple weeks ago, our schools and our Head Start centers opened for the season. During that first week, I made it a point to go out and visit with our staff during the administrative pre-service to give them a state of RCMA update. But it was more than that because the staff, I've been around in RCMA for 35 years. So I have connections and relationships with everybody at all levels. And it was very rewarding to go back and hear people why they are still a part of RCMA and why they still see me as their role model. And so you don't recognize that because some of them I hired as teachers. Some of them I hired as a family support worker. They're still there. And they share how the impact that I gave to them, and I don't realize it. But I think that without being intentional, when you really are mentoring and really being authentic about helping others learn, it just helps me grow as a leader. It reassures me that I need to keep being authentic and keep being vulnerable. And I think those are the 2 things that really help me stay grounded and in touch with my staff and our organization.
It's funny you say authenticity and vulnerability are core to your story. I think I experienced when I first got to come visit RCMA a really beautiful connection of your pre-K programs to your schools. But one of the things I noticed was in the leaders who were in the schools, they were also learners. They were also very vulnerable about acknowledging where they wanted to get better. How do you foster that? How do you foster that across RCMA? Because I feel like that's actually one of the superpowers of the organization is that there are so many people there who are learners. There are so many people there who want to get better at what they do on a day in and day out basis.
I believe that is the culture of RCMA, the philosophy, because when I talked about starting the first child care center in 1965, the parents didn't want to bring their kids to the center. And it was a group of Mennonites who was running the center. And they asked Mr. Rollison, why don't they want to bring the kids? And Mr. Rollison basically said, because you don't look like them. They have to trust you. And ever since then, the philosophy of RCMA has been to hire from the communities we serve. And so I believe that everybody in RCMA has that same passion to be able to say, so while I've always believed also, because I think, again, it's our culture and our philosophy, when RCMA is providing the education or quality early childhood program or a kindergarten to 8th grade high educational programming to the students, they're not only educating the students, they're also educating the parents. But in addition, we are also educating staff. We are helping staff recognize and see in themselves that opportunity or that capability to grow. And so I think that it's just the culture philosophy that everyone is here to learn and grow. I believe that we also really instill a lot of cross training and growth from within. So many of us, similar to my story, have grown from within, have came from being a teacher to being Zuleika, our principal in Immokalee. She started out working, she's wonderful. And she started working out with parents, our policy council parents, where you're providing education and training to them, to being a 3rd grade teacher. And now she's our principal. And so I think because we walk that walk and we know what it's really like to grow and give back, that's why we have that culture of belief within the organization. And that's why you see in our schools that teachers and administrators, they literally want to take time to give that child that one-on-one attention and meet them where they're at, because it is their culture. It is their background. They came from that same. Zuleika grew up as a farm worker, and she knows how important it is to really give that leg up to those children and the families. That is, I believe a lot of it has to do with our culture, coupled with being intentional about bringing in coaches. This past year, I know that we have our principal manager, Ashley, who spent a lot of time with a coach to really then know how to do the technicality of coaching.
Yep.
Some things just happen naturally, but other things you still have to know that now we have to be technical about it.
That's right.
There has to be a plan. There has to be a process.
That's right.
In our early childhood programs, we have a coaching-based model where now teachers have a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, where you were going to get coached. So we also are now being very intentional about what coaching looks like. And I think that just helps us elevate what our philosophy is to a much more higher scale and quality that we are all aiming for.
Yes, love that. Let's take the listeners or viewers of this. Let's take us into an RCMA. Let's go into an early childhood center where there is one of the charter schools. And can you talk a little bit about how they work together to kind of ensure that families have that full 0 to 8 continuum that you talked about? And then after that, I'm going to ask you to brag a little bit and talk about the results that you all are seeing from your schools.
So I think that's what is our secret sauce. It is that our charter schools are co-located where our early childhood programs are. And so the 3 schools are connected, intentionally connected to Migrant Head Start Center. And so we have a Migrant Head Start Center that is serving 6 weeks to 5-year-olds, VPK children. Our curriculum is very rigorous. We do create a curriculum in high school. Teachers, we have teachers that have 2 years and 4-year degrees in our Head Start programs, and children get assessments. We know where they're at, and they're assessed 3 times a year. So we know when children and how to get them ready for kindergarten. We work really close with the families as a partner in building those relationships and saying, you are the advocate. You are the child's first teacher. We're here to just add to that strength. We're here to give you more tools. And so it is very fortunate that when our kindergartners are coming in from the early childhood center, they already have that strong foundation of what is early childhood, what is learning, and we also have that strong family partnership foundation. So once they come into the school, they start what we call even the more rigorous academic process. Now you really have to learn to read and write and meet our third grade standards and meet all these state standards. And so we continue that model in the schools. We have teacher aides, we have social workers, we have migrant counselors that really continue to work with that family. They continue to do workshops. Their SAC committees are 99 to 100% attendance because parents already know that they come from an early childhood program where they're involved. When they get to the school, they continue to be involved. And so we are strengthening that, what you mentioned earlier, the 0 to 8th grade model. One of the things we have learned was, how do we share services? So in the school, and I will use Immokalee Community Academy as an example, the cafeteria people and the cafeteria staff and lunch and breakfast and all that is served for all the students. That's the school and the early childhood center. So there's not two separate kitchens. There's not two separate groups. We are sharing services. How do we continue to make this as a continuum approach? When there is a health fair or when there is a community event or an event at the school, every year in December we do a tamalada where parents from different parts of Central America and Mexico come in and do their tamales their way. So they are like 20 different ways of tamales. But it is a concerted effort where it is the early childhood and the school that put this event together because we're serving the same families. Maybe the kindergartner went and maybe the infant is still in our program. So there is this shared service of family engagement and family involvement. So many of our teachers, some of our teachers from our early childhood program have moved on to be a teacher at the charter school. And they are now teaching first or kindergarten. So we also believe in, really sharing our resources and how do we continue to do this as a 0 to 8th grade model. Our successes.
Yeah, tell us about. I want you to brag a little bit because you all had a very, very good year last year, and it's a string of incredible years for RCMA.
Our Immokalee Community School was 2 years in a row with grade A. So kudos to them and the teachers and the kiddos. Our Waimama Community Academy is 2 years in a row a B. Our Mulberry Community Academy just opened our third grade classroom. And the results of the state tests are very high. They are higher than most of the state average. In our Waimama Community Academy civics, our children are at 100% proficiency in civics, when the state average is 71%. Math, we have 93% proficiency in geometry, 84% proficiency in algebra, and the state average is like 54%. So our kids are excelling, our kids are learning, and as I mentioned earlier, they are getting into collegiate programs. They are getting into private college, high schools that is more rigorous and more challenging. They are scoring off the charts, and I have to say about our VPKers, they all are progressing and showing high accomplishments compared to the state. Every one of them grew in each of their domains. We have great teachers and great learners because these kids want to learn. Every student can. They just need to be given that same opportunity.
That's incredible results. And having been in your schools multiple times to see the joy and energy that comes from the staff and the students is just incredible. One of the things that I'd love for you to talk about is you all serve a very unique population of predominantly migrant students from migrant farm working families. What is different about how you all construct and think about their education from what they may get if they went to the school down the street?
One is our schools are very community-based schools. We are intentional about keeping them the size they are because, again, we want to be able to give that student the quality attention that they need. We are a dual language, bilingual school. And so many of our students already come from the early childhood program because we support the home language from early childhood and beyond. And so many of our students already have that strong foundation of the home language, and the parents believe that they need to keep the home language. And once they get into the school, they are literally taught in Spanish and in English every subject. So we are the only dual language schools in our communities. The other thing that I believe is very unique when I say we are community schools is that we're not just giving an education. We are embedded in the community. We are there during times of crisis, and we are there during times of celebration. So as you know, that in Florida is also prone to hurricanes. And when we are in a disaster, RCMA has been one of the agencies that steps up and says, we need to make sure we get recovery supplies into our communities quickly for our families. Because of those partnerships, we receive a lot of distributions first to RCMA because we know and the families know that they can come to RCMA and not feel threatened or worried, that, police officers or that they're in harm's way. But we respond whenever we've had a hurricane, you will be amazed at the staff that as soon as it is safe for them to walk out that door, the first thing they do is go and check on the families and the students. Because we know that the living conditions that they have and the areas that they live in cannot sustain many storms like this. So they immediately want to be able to say, we want to know how they did it. We want to know where they're at. We also use some of our schools as shelters for both the staff and the families. And so our schools are very community focused because we do look at it as a community. A child can't learn if he's hungry, unsafe, or scared from what's happening out there. And so we care about what's happening with immigration. We care what's happening about housing. We care when there is no nutritional programs offering nutrition to them. And we make sure that we're involved and we provide those services through before and after school. We also provide Saturday schools when we know that a migrant child came in later, like October is when our migrant season is the peak season. Many of our students come later, and we help them catch up by providing the Saturday school.
Oh, so you have a chunk of your students who, given their family schedules, they're coming in after the start of the school year.
Yes, that's another uniqueness of RCMA and our migrant head starts. They are seasonal programs, so you will see a majority of families leave at the end of the season, like May, and many of them will not come back until October because they still immigrate to do some of the crops outside, like Tennessee, North Carolina, Tampa. And so we do have a chunk of students that we are holding our slots for. And many times we lose the FTE count because they're not back. But we hold the slots for them because we know that they're coming back. We know that they're up north picking or the crops and that they're going to return. So we do have a peak season where it's October to May. And in the summer, you'll see our numbers drop. But not all of them are here in August when we open.
That's pretty amazing that your commitment to your families and your students and your community is such that you are holding space knowing it is, people talk all the time about being community schools and being responsive to their communities. This is one of the most profound examples that I've ever heard of people adjusting the school to truly reflect and be responsive to what the community needs.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah,
it's just what we do. We don't even think about it. It's like that's just how we operate. Yeah.
That is truly amazing.
I think that's why for us it's really important to have a lot of grant funding, a lot of partnerships, because we know that to do this outside of what is the FTE reimbursement, it costs. But we know that the families we're serving and the resources that we need are far beyond, and we have to do extra by trying to seek that funding, because we know that they need it, and we know that they need that support. And many communities, as I mentioned, we're in very rural communities. In many communities, those resources are not there. And so RCMA is that resource. RCMA, in many ways, is the lifeline for many families.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
I just want to follow up with that with you, because I do sometimes think that it can sometimes be so community-based, divert us away from our true mission, which I know our mission is. And so I would like to know from you kind of what does that really look like or mean, because I do believe that sometimes we can get into what we say is out of our lane, like immigration, that's not our lane, but it impacts our students.
Sure.
So how do we measure that? And what have you seen, or what is your experience? Like, how do you help us to say, no, this is mission driven, but it is kind of moving out of your lane?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And we get to see all kinds of community rooted models across the country. I think the ones that are most effective have a discipline that allows them to do a couple of things. One, they always remember that their goal and their mission is student-centered first. I think some of the organizations that we've seen kind of drift away from that, they become parent or community first. And so they begin to take on all the things of the community, and they lose a little bit of the focus on student. And so I think one of the things I loved about you all is it all emanates out from the student.
Yes.
And so don't ever lose that.
Okay.
And then the second thing is, I think we see a lot of people get into trouble when they start getting into things that do not have sustainable business models behind them. So I know you started to talk about, the refining of the business model and the structures of RCMA. When we see people start to get too far afield on things where they love to do it, but there's no revenue coming in to do it, that's when they begin to get themselves in trouble.
Okay, good. Well, you provided some reassurance for me. Thank you for that bit of advice, and thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about the impact that the current climate is having on how families and students are feeling at RCMA? And then also about, frankly, the potential fiscal impacts that are facing the organization. Again,
by us operating in the rural community, you already see a lack of resources and a lack of families living in fear, families living in the shadow. This has even exacerbated more now with the current threats in the community. Families are scared. Many families, I will tell you that this year we did have many families who did not migrate, who did not leave up north because of the threats of Border Patrol in the state of Florida at the borderline. So we had a lot of families that stayed out throughout the summer that normally would not stay through the summer, but who struggled because there is no work in the summer because they pick the crops. And so families continue to live in fear, and we are seeing some raids in our community. This past couple of weeks in Immokalee, there was a big raid, 50 to 100 individuals, were detained. We have a couple of families that have been separated from their father. So you do have some families that are scared to send their students to school. During these 2 weeks, we actually went out and picked up the students and provided transportation in Immokalee. So transportation to us is important because we know we can safely get them to our schools to and from home. And so, but it also is not as easy because you have to convince the family, we're going to pick them up, we'll bring them back. But the fear of the family is not that they're not safe in school. The fear of the family is, and the fear of the student is, what if I get home and I'm not here because I was detained? So I just rather keep my family here to avoid that. Those are the stories we're hearing when the parents are choosing why they don't want to bring them to school. Or like the last 2 weeks that ICE was in the community, they were not bringing the students to school. And so there's fear. There is families living in the shadows even more so. The threat of funding is out there because they are targeting in RCMA, being that we serve migrant workers. But I also believe that it's an opportunity for us to raise awareness because there is this misperception that because you work in the field or you're a farm worker or because you're Hispanic, that you're undocumented, or because you're receiving this service that you're undocumented. And that's a misperception. I grew up as a migrant child. I'm a U.S. citizen. So don't assume that these children and families are undocumented. Don't assume that, they're in mixed status families. So that's the other thing that I look at it. We look at this threat of lack of funding and threat of families being deported. It's also an opportunity to raise an awareness to the community and the powers to be that don't be racial profiling because you're just making assumptions. I also believe that we have to maintain strong relationships with our legislators and our partners. I believe that is also important for us to maintain those relationships and not only call them in the time of trouble, but during the year. Yes. And we invite them to the school, we invite them to the centers, come and look at what we're doing in our classrooms. Come and see how children are learning. Come and see the amazing teachers that we have because we do have impact on the economy in this community. If we lose this funding, you have 400 employees, 1,000 children that don't get services, employees that have no job. You lose $2-3 billion just in this community. So that also giving and being prepared to share the economic impact of the loss of these services was very helpful to be able to share with all our representatives and senators and we continue to do that, That's important for us, and we know that it is crucial for our funding.
Yeah. That's an amazing story of advocacy, and I think a lesson to learn for many leaders that it is having those relationships that will allow you, when things get tough, to call upon them to help you and to have them celebrate with you when things are going well. I think that's an important lesson for many, many leaders across the country. I want to ask you a question about your leadership that we've talked a little bit about before at RCMA. You stepped into the ED role about 5 years ago, and you were a successor to a white woman who had the role for a long time. We're starting to see in education, and especially in charters, more situations that are cropping up where there is a person of color who's a successor to a white founder or white leader. I'd love for you to share, how was that experience for you, and what obstacles did you have to overcome as a part of that, and then what strengths and assets did you bring that said, hey, my job as ED is going to be different than my predecessor, and I'm going to operate differently than my predecessor?
Wow, that's a full-loaded question.
Okay. Take your time.
One, I have to say that my predecessor, that's right, that's how you say it, right?
Yeah.
She was one of my biggest mentors. She really believed in helping raise the voice and the skills of Latinos, mostly, and she really believed in giving that opportunity to these communities. And so I believe I am here today because of her support and her belief in me. It has taken also me to reflect and step back and say, but really, I also do have these skills and talents. And I think that's one of our, culturally, we're so very humble that we don't tout or toot our own horn. I think that's just culturally what happens in the Latino community. And so that's one thing that's been very difficult for me is how do I acknowledge the strengths and skills and talents that I have without gloating? But that's what it looks like to me. But outside, to other people, they're like, no, Isabel, you have to know that you can do this. You have to know and don't be afraid. Something that's simple, I will tell you that one of the things that I've learned the hard way is we were always okay with what they paid us. But when you found out what they were paying your counterpart, because they knew how to advocate and speak up and say, no, I'm not, this is not what I'm worth. We don't think that way. So I think now as a Latino leader and the ED, I reflect on those things and I think about those things and say, what is really equitable and how do I really recognize folks for their skills and talents, not because their gender or their race. Yeah. And so I feel like I've learned still even a lot more in this role. I feel like I have reached out to new mentors. I have been given the opportunity to be in Charter School Growth Network is an example.
We're so thrilled to have you.
Meeting other leaders of color and seeing how they think and operate. It's been a big advantage and opportunity for me. I've been in other groups where I was invited to an executive group of the South, which had to do with literally learning the South, and it was made up of colored people. And so I've started being exposed to other leaders of color that helps me reflect. And now I use them also, we have our Latino affinity group and we have a conference call. And so I think those things have helped me now to really say, how do I look at these from the perspective of a color leader? Because I thought it's never been okay to look at it that way. But we are different and we do think different and we are experts in our communities. We are experts in our culture. And I continue to learn, how do I express that in a polished way? And so I continue. The easiest thing for me is to continue to be vulnerable. I mean, I have to let my staff know when I'm struggling. I have to let them know that, I don't know the answers. We're going to figure this out. And it continues to be an area where I'm growing because I know I know the talents and skills I have. And I just have to continue to polish them up and use my resources. As I mentioned, the executive, I did have the opportunity to go to a strategic perspective management class in Harvard. That was like the way opposite experience that I've ever had. Amazing experience. It's just now I have to learn how to apply them and use them to continue to help me lead in a way that other people accept it.
Well, it's amazing that you speak of the vulnerability, because I think one of the most underrated things I see in leaders across the country, and I saw it in you from the moment that we met, is vulnerability is actually one of the most powerful leadership tools that's out there.
Wow.
Because it allows people to connect. And I think you and the organization exemplify that so well.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think sometimes people or even for myself, but I think that sometimes, or you will hear it's like, no, I'm not going to be vulnerable. And I think that that is key when you have, or you're trying to also create a team where we are in this for the same goal. But you can't get there if there's not trust or vulnerability. And then when you see that there's team members that don't buy into that because they see it as a weakness, I think it's an area that we need to continue to really emphasize as no, because this is an area where we will get more out of this team and we will be able to reach those goals that we're all trying to accomplish as a unified team. And many people see it as a weakness to be vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah. It's actually a strength.
Yeah.
It's actually a strength.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Okay, I want to get out with 2 questions for you. First one, what's the next decade have in store for RCMA?
Oh, wow, that's 10 years from now. We really, our goal is going to be focusing on really strengthening the 0 to 8th grade model. We strongly believe that doing charter schools is the right thing for RCMA. So our goal is to continue to strengthen our business model because we never really had a business model. You know, we just did things because they felt right. So I have inherited an operation that is not clearly spelled out. So we are strengthening our business model by really having what is a playbook and what is a model that is sustainable, because we know that our wish and our desire is to grow more schools, because we know that the early childhood children that we're serving deserve and can benefit from this model. So I think that a lot of our effort is really to continue to polish and define what that business model will be, coupled with strengthening our bench. I think that's been one of the challenges for us, is to, because we're in rural communities, is to hire talent at what we consider a C-suite or executive level, because I do believe that that is an area we can continue to improve and grow in. We have an amazing board that has helped us with expertise, and I think working with the Charter School Growth Fund Network has also helped us identify areas where we can grow. So the next decade is, one, keeping a pulse on current community immigration issues that we know are impacting our families.
Absolutely.
Keeping our vision of growing more schools, and also scaling our centers to sustainability, because we do have our centers that are also at vulnerable because of the current administration, with all the cuts or threats of reducing Head Start or changing Head Start. RCMA does depend a lot on Head Start, so it's also looking at scaling centers to be able that we are sustainable. So I think it really is in the next 10 years to really, really focus on building a sustainable 0 to 8th grade model with a strong bench and capacity to be around another 60 years, which I won't be here in 60 years, but maybe the next 5-10 years.
All right, I want to close out with a final question. If you could speak today to young Isabel about the leader she was going to become in the future and give her advice, because there are other young Isabels out there, what would you say?
I think going back to my learner strength is get your education, work on yourself, continue to seek out opportunities to build your own skills and knowledge, because at the end of the day, your education is yours. It belongs to you. No one can take it away from you. And so I believe that we need to continue to have mentors like I had in my life to be able to be where I'm at today. So I would say, like I tell my son, who's 24, and still hasn't decided what his career path is going to be. He's changed his major 3 times. But you're going to keep going to school, and you're going to decide what you're going to get, because at the end of the day, you have to have an education. That is important for you to be able to succeed and know that that makes you who you are.
So powerful. Thank you for coming and joining. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and sharing your story. I'm deeply appreciative of you making the long journey from Florida to Chicago to be with us today.
No, well, I appreciate being here, and I really thank you, Darryl, for giving us this platform, because I do believe, because of Charter School Growth Fund, that you are bringing light to colored communities that often feel like we don't have a place. And I really appreciate for what you're doing, and I have been so fortunate to have learned a lot from the network, and it really has helped in my role as we're growing schools and really understand what it is to be a really strong, functional, sustainable organization. So I really appreciate being here and continue to have an opportunity again, one-on-one with you. You know, that's always limited time, and we'll take it anytime.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for believing in us, and thank you for really, really putting this platform out there for us.
Yeah. No longer the best kept secret, just the best.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.